Buying a house is no small thing, and buying a house in another country will be a lot more fun if you are prepared. Hi, my name is Nicole. Welcome to my channel, Travel to Money. In this video, I'm going to share my top 7 tips for buying a house in Spain. I basically want to take you through the process that I would follow if I was starting all over again. If you're looking for a more technical video about the process of buying a house, I have lots of those, so be sure to subscribe and check those out. But start here with this one to get a good overview. Okay, let's go. Tip number 1, start with research. I know this may seem obvious, but I think this part is pretty critical in order to avoid wasted time or missteps. I don't mean the research of even buying a house in Spain. That part is actually pretty simple, but let me give you a few examples. A lot of people contact me and say they are wanting to buy a couple of houses and run Airbnbs. Great. But what are the laws? Are there restrictions? What are the taxes? Did you know you have to pay 24% tax without getting any deductions if you are a non-resident? So for every $100 you bring in, you are paying the government $24 of that, no matter what. And did you know that if you are a non-resident, you have to report any rental income after every quarter, which means you'll also need to be paying your accountant every quarter. Now, I'm not saying this to turn anyone off of starting some sort of rental business, but if you know this kind of information in advance, then when you're looking at a house and considering a purchase, you'll have a better idea if it makes financial sense for you. You don't want to jump the gun and buy a place and find out a year and $50,000 down the road that you can't even rent the place out because of some sort of restrictions on short-term rentals like they have in Barcelona. Another thing to think about and research is what your plan is for living. I'm not a resident of Spain, so I never had to look into visa options, but it's important to know that if you don't get some other sort of visa, you may be limited to visiting just 90 days at a time for a maximum of 6 months each year. Now that's perfect for me, but if you're planning to be there full time or most of the time, you don't want to start with buying a house. As a matter of fact, you might want to get your residency sorted first with a year-long rental that will allow you to get to know an area before you buy. There are several different visa options, like the non-lucrative visa if you are retired and making fully passive income, or the new digital nomad visa, which has some tax advantages to lure digital nomads. But you need to have an idea of what visa you're going to apply for and any restrictions that come along with it. And even if you're not planning to live in Spain full time, know what your options are so that you know what's available to you if your life plan changes. Another thing to research are your financing options. Like if you're paying in cash, great, easiest. But if you want a loan, although that's possible, are you prepared for a 40% or more down payment? That's the kind of information you need to know. If you're planning on remodeling a home, you should know there's a lot of bureaucracy that is involved with certain types of permits. Now, I'm not trying to put anyone off of anything. I've had really great experiences, but I've also learned a lot of these lessons along the way that would have been most helpful to know in advance. If you're like me, you love the research phase anyway, so try to have fun with it and just learn as much as you can in advance. Okay, tip number 2, go on an exploration trip. And by exploration trip, I don't mean a trip to find a house. Now, you could end up finding a house, but don't even worry about that at this point. I get that some of you may be on a tighter timeline, but if you have time on your side, just go and get to know some different areas. Rather than thinking about finding a house, find the area that is most suited to you and your budget. If you have a ton of money and you mostly want to be around expats, maybe the coastal area is calling you, or you want to live in one of the more expensive cities like Barcelona or Madrid. But I cannot overstate how important it is to get to know the areas you're interested in for yourself. Let me give you an example. At some point, Barcelona became a real hotspot. Like it's super famous, people all over the world talk about it, and Ed Sheeran even wrote a song about it. But I've been 3 times and it's fine, but it's not even close to being my favorite place in Spain. And I'm not putting Barcelona down. What I'm trying to say is that finding a place to live is like dating. Just because someone is great doesn't mean they are great for you. I also want to say that I have never spent extended time in Barcelona, and living in a place is very different than visiting as a tourist. And this goes for anywhere, which brings me to my next point. I'd recommend staying in an Airbnb instead of in a hotel. Make this trip as much like normal life as you can. Go grocery shopping and spend a couple of days just doing normal life like you would if you were living there. Once you find an area or a couple of areas that you like, start to get an idea of real estate prices so that you can figure out if the area you like is within your budget Or maybe you just need budget goals because you're going to go home and save a little more so that you can move to the place that best suits your lifestyle. Now, another suggestion would be meeting up with other expats. Maybe join one of the local expat Facebook groups and see if you can buy someone a coffee and chat with them about their experience living in that area. This kind of relationship building is invaluable and will offer insights that you won't be able to just Google. Okay, once the exploration phase or trip is done, now you can start to focus on tip number 3, which is shopping for homes. And I'm not saying that you need to buy a house at this point. Maybe it's best for you to come and live in that area with a rental for a while. But if you're on the path to buy a house, in my mind, this is where you start shopping. The more time you have to pursue this step, the better for you. Patience is going to be important just for living in Spain in general. So the more time you have to be flexible and see what homes become available in the area you're visiting, the better. If you've got a limited amount of time, you could walk the entire city or town to get a feel for each area. That way, if something becomes available after you've left, you already know if it's an area you would be okay with. You can search on real estate websites like idealista.com, but don't limit your searches to that. Look at real estate listings in the windows of agent shops throughout the area. Look for homes as you walk around that are for sale by owner with WhatsApp numbers in the doors or windows, or even check back in with one of the expat Facebook groups or look at listings on Facebook Marketplace. You'd be surprised what you can find for sale there. In this phase of shopping, have lots of conversations and ask lots of questions. Then, when you find a place you like, have more conversations. Find out why the owner is selling and find ways to get creative. Don't be afraid to make an offer. Every single real estate deal is different. I knew someone selling a house that was willing to offer owner financing with 0% interest. You just never know what is available until you ask. My next tip, number 4, is to get to know the neighbors. Now, this could be before you buy, during the purchase process, or after your purchase is complete. But knowing my neighbors has been one of the most beneficial things to me during my home ownership in Spain. If you speak Spanish, that's fantastic and will allow you to know more people, but you may find it very common to have expat neighbors at least somewhere nearby. If you aren't going to be living there full time, having neighbors who know who you are and who can contact you if they notice something about your house is great. They can also give you referrals and let you know about things going on in the local area. Now, personally, I get a lot out of just the relationship with my neighbors because relationships matter far beyond what they can offer you. The truth of the matter is that both parts usually end up going hand in hand. And as you get to know your neighbors, don't just take from the relationship. Be a good neighbor too. Tip number 5 is to get a real estate attorney. Now, you could technically find an attorney before you start shopping, but it's not completely necessary until you're getting ready to buy. I talk a lot about this in my other videos, but your attorney can do everything for you in the process without ever having the need for a real estate agent. My attorney got my tax identification number for me, helped me set up my bank account, set up my utilities for me with automatic payments from my account, connected me with an accountant, did all the property research, and at the time, all of this only ended up costing me €1,200, which I didn't pay until after we closed on the house. Now, you can look for local recommendations for attorneys, but ask and make sure your attorney is willing and able to do all that I mentioned. I do not give out my attorney information on here because I was bombarded with attorney requests. I do keep a full list of recommended attorneys for each city and town in Spain, but those recommendations are only provided for anyone who does a coaching session with me and will eventually be something I offer when I offer a course for buying a house in Spain. If you want to sign up for a one-on-one coaching session with me about buying a house in Spain, you can schedule an appointment at traveltomoney.com/coaching. Tip number 6 is to get an inspection. Now, if you're buying in cash, you aren't required to get an inspection, but obviously that's still a good idea, even if you're someone who is familiar with building. I know a lot about homes and worked with my dad on some remodels we did growing up, but the process of building a house in Spain is different. So if you're coming from a different country, it's especially important to have someone who understands local forms of construction. There are 2 different types of inspections you can get. You have a more standard inspection, inspection. And then there is a more detailed one that includes inspecting the structure. I would say that it's worthwhile and could end up helping you avoid purchasing something that needs major structural repairs. Now, I didn't go this route when I purchased, but from what I've read online, the more advanced structural inspection is between 3 and 400 euro. If you are someone who has had this done, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Tip number 7 is to have fun and a whole lot of patience, and plan for that in advance so that you can enjoy the process, whether that's the research process, the exploration process, the home buying process, or the renovation process. If you are type A, you will need to be in great supply of a whole lot of chill pills. And trust me, that's for your benefit. One of the great things about Spain is the quality of a slower pace of life, but that also means you can't just get things done at the snap of a finger, and most processes will end up taking longer than you imagined. You will do yourself a big favor if you go into it expecting it to move slowly and treating people with respect, even if they don't have the customer comes first type of attitude. Remember, you're in a different culture. This is not America. This is not the UK. And if we want the benefits of the culture in Spain, we also have to be willing to understand the trade-offs and can't come into it making unrealistic demands. I personally think the trade-offs are worth it, and I love every moment I get to be in the beautiful country of Spain. Has this video helped you with expectations and a plan? Let me know your story in the comments. I'd love to chat with you. Do me a favor, like this video and subscribe to join me every day, where travel and adventure build financial freedom. I can't wait to see where your dreams will take you.